What's up everyone, this is Sir Science Bulldog here, and in today's vlog we are going to be discussing what bacteria are. So I'm going to define what a bacterium is for you guys, since many of you I know don't have a science background, and that's wonderful since you don't need to have science background in this channel, and I'm waving my hand all over the place, to enjoy it. This is all about learning about microbes, specifically infectious agents, so since that's my specialty. But if you want to know anything else, just let me know and I will cover it. Alright, so what is a bacterium? Now, if you remember from high school biology, if you ever took it, if you don't, that's fine, but there are things called cells, and basically all living things are composed of cells, including us. Although we're not one giant cell, we're composed of many different cells that are specialized, right? So we have cells that can let us see, we have cells that can let us taste things, and then we have cells that can, communicate with each other so that we can see and hear and taste and all that wonderful stuff. It's a bit different for bacteria though, because they're single cells, and these little single-celled organisms are capable of all the things we can do, or at least things that perform similar functions, and they're just one single cell that can do this. So a bacterium is a single-celled organism, and that's a broad definition since it can be applied to other things, but for this channel, bacteria are single-celled organisms that are capable of reproducing, consuming substances, chemicals for as sources of nutrition and food. They're also capable of communicating with each other and other bacteria species, as in some cases. They're also capable of excreting waste byproducts. So every time you eat something, you have to get rid of the things that aren't necessary, and bacteria are also capable of doing that. Now, you may think that all bacteria, all germs, as some people call them, are bad. And that's not necessarily the case. Interestingly enough, these bacteria that are so small, they're microscopic, you can't see them with your eye. You could fit, a couple of hundred or a few thousand on you could actually fit a bit more. Depending on the size, you can fit a lot on the pin, like the tip of a needle, right? And it goes, we'll talk about viruses later on in the next vlog, but they're definitely smaller than that. So bacteria are really small, and they're all over the place. They're on your bed, they're on your skin, they're on your food, so you're basically eating bacteria. They're all over the place, and you don't get sick most of the time. So the natural conclusion to reach from that is not all bacteria are bad. However, we do have examples of bad ones. So tetanus, which is caused by Clostridium tetani, does cause infections. Now, these are specially adapted little bacteria most of the time that their whole purpose in life is to basically get inside you and fuck shit up, because that's where they get their food. There are also other types of infections where these bacteria just stumble upon you as a nice, rich kind of source of food, right? So these aren't necessarily bad bacteria in the first place, but they can become bad just by being there when they shouldn't be. So we're going to be talking about that a bit later, but basically, that type of bacteria that aren't necessarily bad in other places of the body are bad when they enter different places. So example, Staphylococcus aureus, which is a common skin bacterium, right? It likes dry, kind of salty, because you sweat, so there's a lot of salt. It likes those types of conditions. And this microbe is fine and happy outside on your skin doesn't really care. But if you get burnt, or if you get cuts, there is a chance that it colonizes that cut site or burn site and multiplies, and that causes an infection. So that's kind of an opportunistic little bacterium. We have the specially adapted bacteria that are fairly good at messing with our stuff. So you have things like Clostridium difficile, or Clostridium difficile, there we go, or some of these words are really annoying and complicated. You can look up what the organisms do on your own if you want to do more research. If you want me to do the research for you, just ask me the questions and I'll do it. So, you have Clostridium difficile, which is an organism that inhabits your gut. Now, the thing about this guy is he's really resistant to antibiotics. So that's one of the other key things to remember. Bacteria can be targeted by antibiotics. So Some words you might hear at doctors are penicillin, amoxicillin, ampicillin. There's a lot of illins because that's the compound used to create those chemicals to treat these bacteria. And I might go into a video telling you guys how that works later if you're interested in that. So bacteria can be targeted by antibiotics most of the time. Clostridium difficile, however, is fairly resistant to this. So it's an infection you can pick up at hospitals, which are you'd expect to be clean, but since there's a lot of sick people, it kind of balances out. So it's a kind of a dangerous place to be if you spend too much time there unnecessarily. So that's kind of why surgeries can go wrong and other stuff like that. So you have Clostridium difficile, which is one of those specialized pathogens. You also have the plague, Yersinia pestis, which is also known as the Black Death, which devastated Europe during medieval times. And you had the funny-looking people that are pretty common in some video games, which are kind of the plague doctors, so they have this kind of bird-like beak. And so you had those guys treating around the Black Plague during the medieval times. And Yersinia pestis as a bacteria itself is fairly interesting. I won't go into too much detail, but basically it has this little spear that it pierces cells with. So it'll go into your body and it'll start jacking your stuff up. It will pierce your cells, and that causes, symptoms. So basically we've covered some bad bacteria. We haven't covered too much good bacteria, but I'll do that in a next vlog. There are some fascinating bacteria that can be used to clean up oil spills because they decompose the oil in the water. So that's a fairly interesting topic. There are other bacteria that do other fascinating stuff. So in probiotics, for your yogurts, if you buy probiotics, you're basically eating really high concentrations of bacteria to help promote good stuff in your stomach. So they produce nutrients, vitamins, and also other stuff that provide assistance or are beneficial in some ways. So we'll get into that later, but I basically wanted to do a quick vlog telling you guys what bacteria were if you don't know about them. And yeah, I hope you guys like the content. Definitely give me likes, definitely share if you want to spread the word of microbiology to other people that aren't necessarily science people, because that is the goal of this channel, and definitely subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching.